Welcome to the Vincent Ford Podcast. All right, let's talk foundation and concealer for medium deep to deep skin tones, because let's be real, it's not always easy to find the perfect match, whether it's products looking too ashy. Sometimes the brands aren't catering for deeper skin tones, which has gotten much better. But I think people struggle with this. They struggle with oxidation. We've all been there. We all know what it's like as artists and as users to find perfect matches for yourself. And I struggle with it so much when I'm finding products for models if I have to use a specific brand. So today I want to break it all down. I'm going to tell you about the right products, the best application methods, and I love to do myth busting. So we're going to do that as well. But I hope by the end of this, you know exactly how to get to that flawless, natural looking skin, no matter what shade you are. So let's get started. So first one that I think is the most important when you're talking about matching for medium deep and deep skin tone is knowing your undertone. So the biggest mistake I see that people make is that they choose the wrong undertone. I think that foundation, sometimes people think, oh, I'm going to get the right exact shade, and they think because it's the right shade, it will work for them. But undertone is the most important. I think it's actually more important to match your undertone than it is the shade. Because if you have the wrong undertone, you will notice. So imagine you have very warm undertone skin and your skin undertone leans more towards yellow, maybe even peach, and you put a pink or red-based foundation or concealer on, it's going to look awful. So undertone is just as important as matching. But remember with undertone, especially with medium deep and deep skin tone, I think a lot of people think that everyone who's deeper skinned is either yellow or red undertone. And it's not true. There's so many variations of this. There's golden, there's peach, there's olive, there's neutral. I think for me, when I first moved here, if you don't know, I originally am from Los Angeles, but I live in London now. I met a lot of models that were mixed race. So they came from African or Jamaican and then mixed with white British. But the problem that happens is that the foundations that are available, especially here in the UK, don't cater towards these undertones. I would find one that's like just about right, but the undertone was completely off. And luckily, I have adjusters so I can, go through them and, add a little bit of olive, add a little bit of, yellow, whatever I need to do. But I think for the average person, this is too difficult to achieve on your own, and you want to find something that matches. So finding out what undertone you are is very important, but the technique to find your undertone, which I see often described, is to look at the color of your veins. The issue with this is as you get into deeper skin tones, the color of the veins doesn't show. So you're not able to just look down and say, oh yeah, my veins are green or blue, which obviously would tell you blue is cool tone, green to neutral would be more warmer. So what you have to do is you have to look at the center of your face. So if I'm working with someone and I'm, curious to think what undertone they are, one thing you'll notice is that on the outside of the face, you will be normally deeper. And I'm talking especially when I'm working with deeper skin models who you don't know if it's blue, if it's pink, if it's yellow, whatever the undertone is. Look at the center of the face. I like to swatch a couple shades, but if you don't have foundation shades, try blush or lipsticks. Try a cool tone, so anything that's violet, pink. Swatch it on your cheek, then swatch something that's warmer, something more coral, something that has more warmth to it, and blend out the edges and see which one fits better onto your skin tone. You'll notice right away, because if you have a warm undertone and you put even a pink blush or a pink lipstick on, it's going to pop. It's going to really stand out. Where if you use something that's more peachy, warmer, it's just going to look like it suits your skin better. So this is a great way to do it. If you're finding that both of them look like they maybe could work or maybe don't, maybe you're neutral. So find your undertone. The other important thing is to really understand if you have that kind of olivey neutral, which I described about earlier. If this is you, then you definitely want to find foundations and concealers that are more neutral. And then making sure that if you have something that's cooler, that everything that you choose, your concealers, your foundations, even the color choices you use for the rest of your makeup, lean more towards this undertone if you want it to be more natural. So remember, a good trick too is that if you want something natural, everyday wear, match your undertone. If you want something to pop, so imagine if you have olive skin, you have tan olive skin, and you want something that's brighter, that's going to really stand out maybe for an evening event, then that's where you want to use cool tone. So don't think that you can't use cool toned or opposite undertoned makeup. So I'm talking about eyeshadows, lipsticks, blushers, color products. You can, but just remember, opposite than your undertone is going to stand out, be more dramatic. And if it matches your undertone, it's going to be more natural. Now, one thing that I love as an artist, and you have to look this up. So when I first started my career, I used to work for an airbrush company called Temp2. So I put everything down in the description. Temp2 makes a set of SB adjusters, so they're silicone-based adjusters, and they come in everything from green, blue, red. They have a mini set that you can buy. It's available online. I've seen it on Amazon in the US. Here in the UK, I imported it, and you can find it on pro makeup sites. So kind of look around, Google it, you'll find it. These are your best friend if you struggle with undertones or can't find the right one for you, because it's opposite color theory. So if you found the perfect foundation or concealer, and imagine you have a yellow undertone but it's too pink, you can use opposite. So look at a color wheel, opposite than red or pink is going to be more green. Use the green adjuster, cancel out the pink, and then you can add some yellow in. There's a yellow one as well. The other side of that, if it's too yellow, you can use the violet adjuster, neutralize it, and then add in your pink or your blue undertone or green for olive. It literally lets you customize everything. There are some other brands that do, I know there's some brands that like Ben Nye is one, and they do like color wheels that are cream. You can use these as well. And they're also fun to do if you want to change maybe the lipstick. Maybe you have like the perfect pink or red lipstick and you want it to be more coral or warm. You can add in some orange or yellow. So it gives you so much versatility with your makeup. But this is something that I think everyone should own at least, the few colors that really work for them to get the perfect match. Now, for product recommendations, I think that if you're looking for a set of foundations that has a wide range, there's brands like Fenty do their Pro Filt'r line, has so many shades. NARS now do 46 for their light reflecting foundation. I also like Pat McGrath, the Skin Fetish. I've mentioned her line before, but the Sublime Perfection Foundation has so many undertones, and she understands it as an artist, so you definitely will find one there. But if you want something more affordable, which I always like to do, L'Oreal True Match, the super blendable foundation. It comes, I can't even remember how many colors, maybe even up to 60. There's just so many shades, and it's budget friendly, so really great. Now, while we're talking about undertones, I want to debunk a myth. The myth is that all deep skin tones have yellow undertones. You always see this because everybody this was maybe 2016, all the deep skin influencers were using that banana powder. And everyone's like, oh yeah, yellow is what you have to use if you have deep skin. It's not true. Deep skin comes in golden, it comes in olive, it comes in neutral, like I mentioned earlier, blue undertones, everything. So the myth that it's just one undertone for deeper skin is false. So make sure that you learn your undertones. Now, I think when we're talking about matching for the skin range, the best foundation for medium to deep skin tones, I think what you have to think about is coverage and finish. So you got to find something that obviously works with your skin type. So if you have oily skin, if you have dry skin, make sure that you're finding the formulas that work for your skin type, but you're also looking at the coverage. Now, I'm one, when I apply, if you see my tutorials, I don't like to use super heavy full coverage foundations. I find that it's better to even out the skin with something that's medium and buildable, and then use a full coverage concealer to spot conceal redness, acne, hyperpigmentation, whatever you're covering. I think it just looks so much better. It doesn't look like you're caked up. It just gives you the perfect balance. So I'm not really one for full coverage. But make sure that if you are, that it's one that works with your skin type. So if it's full coverage matte, there's tons of full coverage dewy now. There's, natural finish foundations, Longwear finish foundations. Make sure that you're choosing formulas that fit your lifestyle and skin type. And when it comes to high-end ones that kind of have this broad range, I mentioned the Fenty Pro Filt'r Soft Matte Foundation. This works so well on deep skin. The reason why is if we're talking about tan skin and deeper skin is going to reflect light more, right? So if you have a very fair skin, you can get away with super glowy foundations and it can just look glowy, looks fine. As you get into deeper skin, I have friends that have, some of the deeper shades even in Fenty, and no matter how much powder you use or how much you mattify it, it's always going to reflect light. But that's fabulous. It gives you have glowy, beautiful skin, right? Embrace it. But make sure that you're using formulas that are better for you. So even though you might want that glowy finish, maybe it's more about finding a foundation that keeps the shine down and then adding the glow back in using powdered highlights, even cream blushers, liquid blushers, highlighters. I think you have more control over where the glow is instead of your whole face being glowy. So T-zone, you kind of want to avoid that glow. You want to keep it in the high points of the face. So the Pro Filt'r from Fenty is fabulous for this because it was just made for deeper skin tones. It just looks so good. Something more affordable is the Maybelline Fit Me Matte and Poreless. I like it because it's a classic. It just blends beautifully on deeper complexions, and it has this blurring effect for pores. Now, the myth to debunk is that deeper skin doesn't need foundation, just concealer. And let's clear this up because foundation isn't always just about changing your skin. It's more about evening things out. So concealer alone can give you that, bright under eye. You can cover, problem areas, but it's only going to cover certain areas. You're not going to, if you're applying concealer over the whole face, you might as well use a foundation. Everyone looks a bit better with an even complexion, and maybe that's just a tinted moisturizer for you. It might not necessarily mean that you have to use full coverage everywhere. It could just be a low concealer under the eyes, the tinted moisturizer, and you're set. But I still think that tan and deeper skin definitely benefits from using a foundation. Now, the right way to apply and blend foundation, as we're talking about this, I think it's really important. When it comes to the tools that you use, people have, this is a topic that is just debatable because some people really love that beauty blender look. Some people really love using their favorite foundation brush. My favorite tools are my hands. I just feel that the warmth of your hand and the texture of it give you the most fabulous, flawless, natural finish. If you don't believe me, I have tutorials just based on this. It works so well. I learned this technique when I always kind of used fingers here and there, but when I started with NARS years ago, and I started my first week with them, I was so excited, and I had no idea that they only use hands for their foundation. And I remember I went into training to learn kind of the philosophy of the brand, and they told me that, Francois NARS loved using his hands because he worked backstage in Fashion Week. He grew up in the 70s and 80s. This is what they used. And it's a technique that a lot of pro artists used for many years. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I've only used beauty blenders and brushes, and I'm like, I can't use my hands. And then I learned to love it because I had to do it so much and I perfected it. But the reason why I think I liked it so much is beauty blenders, especially as a pro artist, you can't clean them and disinfect them enough. I can wash my hands, use hand sanitizer, and I know that I'm working with a clean tool, that I'm starting with a clean tool. But brushes and sponges, especially when you're using them on multiple people, you don't necessarily have the cleanest tool. So I think this is healthier for the skin. But I also love the touch because when I'm pressing it in with my hands and pushing the product into certain areas, I know that it's going to set there, that it's blended. With the sponge and the brush, you're just, blending it in, circular motions, patting it in, but you're not sure if it's really adhering to the skin. So I still think hands is the best tool. So this is what I love. But, I used beauty blenders for years and I still love them, especially for maybe layering powder under the eye or getting into the inner corners. Now, if you want a foundation that is so easy to blend, the one that I would recommend is the NARS Radiant Longwear Foundation. And not just because I used to work for them. The reason why I like it is the range is great. The undertones are so perfect with tan and deeper skin tones. They just know it. Some brands, they go kind of like cool, warm, like MAC, for example, they use, which I love, but they'll do like NC and NW. The nice thing with NARS is they just know the undertones that work for that specific shade. You just use it and you're like, wow, that actually matches. But it's so easy to blend, especially with your hands. So this is a great one. If you want something more affordable, budget friendly, Black Opal do a True Color Skin Perfecting Stick Foundation. It's very creamy. It's great for deeper skin tones. Black Opal was all about deeper skin tones, but they have a great range that if you have tan skin, medium deep skin, there's colors for everyone, and they're just so easy to blend. Now, the myth to debunk here is that one foundation shade works all year round. And this is false because, listen, your skin tone changes. If you're more tan in the summer, even when you have deep skin, you get darker in the summer and lighter in the winter, obviously. So I always think it's good to have two shades, so one lighter, one deeper. They don't necessarily have to be, it could be deeper that it matches you in the summer and the lighter matches you in the winter, but you can always use both because I love, especially in deeper skin, I think using one shade just flattens your face out. You need to use lighter in the center, deeper on the outside. So two shades is always going to be your friend when you're applying your foundation, no matter what time of year it is. Now, when we've been talking about foundation, I want to talk more about concealer. So concealer, when we're talking about tan to deeper skin, is different than with lighter. So when you're working with lighter skin tones, you can go super bright, it looks fabulous. The issue you get when you're working with tanner skins and deeper skin tones is that it can go gray and ashy super easy if you go too light. So making sure that the colors that you're picking. So if I were working with a fair skin tone, a light skin tone, and I wanted to cover up acne on the face, I would just match the skin tone exactly. Works great. The issue is if I were to, with a deeper skin, even tan skin, if I were to cover a dark, maybe some acne that had dried down that was dark or hyperpigmentation, and I use the exact match, it will look gray and ashy. So you have to start thinking about color correcting a bit more. So if I were covering, dark areas of the face, you have to use stuff that's with tan and medium deep skin. You want something that's very orange. So tangerine shades. I love the NARS, the Radiant Creamy Color Correctors. They come in light, medium, deep, and deep. So there's one for everyone. For deeper skin tones, especially when I get into deeper black skin, you have to use red to almost deep, like tangerine shades. And what I like to do is mix it into the concealer. So find whatever color corrector you like. You can even use a lipstick. You can use an orange lipstick, or if you're acne prone, don't do that because there's a lot of oils and waxes. But find the color corrector that you like, mix it into the concealer, press it over, and this is going to prevent it from going gray. It's also going to brighten that area. The same thing with under eyes. When you're talking about dark, dark circles that are really deep, especially on these skin tones, I find you can have some really dark areas. This is where you have to go a little bit stronger with your color corrector, but always kind of mix it in. If you layer like an orange color corrector and then a concealer, it's going to look orange. I normally put like a dot on the back of my hand, a little bit of concealer, mix it in so it's blended, and then press it on, and this is going to help a lot. And then also finding your undertone is important for this, because if you have a tan or deeper skin and you have a yellow undertone, you want to use concealers that have the same undertone, or they're going to just look off. The same with deeper, if you have kind of like a blue undertone or olive, make sure that you're finding concealers that match that. Fenty's another great one. The Pro Filt'r concealers come and they sent me all of them, and I literally have a box of, I can't even tell you how many shades there are. There's just so many. It's a huge box, and they're all individual shades, no duplicates. So they do have colors. Go onto the website. They will show you what the undertones are of each one. Same with the foundation. If you want something that's a kind of higher end, really good one for tan and deeper skin, Huda does her faux filter concealers. They are more full coverage, but they don't feel heavy. Just use a little bit and buff it in or press it in with your fingers. And then something more affordable, the LA Girl Pro Conceal HD concealers are really good. They're affordable. They have amazing shade range. So this is a really good one. Now, concealer myth I want to debunk is that use the lightest shade possible to brighten your under eyes. I see this all the time, especially when I worked with certain brands. I would go in and the artists themselves would just have these especially the tanner complexions would just put this like bright yellow concealer under their eyes, and it doesn't, I don't know, for me it doesn't look good. I think it looks too contrasty with the rest of the face. So if you're wanting to brighten, I actually did a video on this recently. Pick a light shade you like, mix your color corrector in, and this is going to make it work so much better. So imagine you have really deep skin and you want to really brighten the under eye. You can go 4 shades lighter than your natural complexion for your under eyes, but mix that kind of, orangey color corrector into the brighter shade, and trust me, it's going to look so much better. Try it side by side and comment down and tell me it didn't work. So make sure that you find the right undertones for the brighter shades and that you are using the color correctors. Now, setting and longevity tricks. When you're working with especially deeper skin tones where there's more the light reflects off, or maybe you have more of an oily skin type in the T-zone, you know that you have to set it or it's going to oxidize. Oxidation is something that is such a huge issue when you work with deeper complexions. The reason why is that the color pigments in these deeper foundations is stronger, right? So if you think about just if you're mixing, a bunch of ingredients, you're putting, they're using minerals, they're using oxides, different makeup ingredients, and you're wanting to match a lighter skin, you don't have to use as heavy of the pigments. The deeper skin tones, there's heavier pigments in it. And what happens with oxidation, it's a mix of the formula and your oil in the sebum in your skin. So water-based foundations are notorious for this because water and oil don't mix. So when you put the water-based foundation on and then the oil in your skin mixes, they separate, the pigment separates, it can look very orange and oxidizes. So when I say oxidizes, the oxygen affects it, it then looks kind of orangey, or sometimes it goes deeper in shade. This is an issue with water-based. It can happen also with silicone oil-based foundations because if your skin is not prepped properly with the right skincare and primers, and your skin's struggling and thirsty for moisture, it will take all of that hydration out of the foundation and leave the pigment, and you'll get this as well. So the ways to fix this is obviously making sure you're doing the prep before, the right skincare. You're also using a primer that is going to help with oil control. So Longwear primers, oil control primers are going to really help with this. So right skincare, oil control primers, making sure that if you're setting it with a powder that you're not using too heavy of a powder. Use ones that are finely milled. Sometimes those HD powders, I struggle with them on deeper skin because they flash back with photos and can look like a little white cast. So use ones that are more, like translucent powders that have a skin undertone to them. I feel like even though there's universal powders, sometimes I'll use them because that's all I have for the brand I'm with. I don't think that they work as well. I think you need to find one that has a better color range. MAC have tons of them. They're really good at this. For kind of the loose one, I think that works with medium deep tan skin tones is the Laura Mercier, that translucent loose setting powder. They come in so many shades now. She even has glowy ones, more matte ones. So that's a really good one. No flashback. It's perfect tone for deep skin as well. And then something more affordable, the Revolution Makeup does a loose baking powder. There's one called Deep Banana. And it just works on so many skin tones. Don't do what I said earlier. Don't everyone just use banana. Use it if you have kind of a warmer to yellow undertone. It works really well. I think they might have a few other shades, but that one works good if you have the warm undertone. And then the myth to debunk for powders and setting is that translucent powder works for everyone. So some translucent powders, they're just too light. So if you ever taken a flash photo, I mentioned you'll get that white cast. So those HD powders, the finely milled ones, they don't always work for everyone. So don't think just because it says it does that it's, it might work, but it might not be the best one for you. Now, I hope that covers foundation, concealer, when it comes to your skin tone, if you are one of these skin tones I mentioned. But I really want you to remember that the foundation and concealer should enhance. So it's not about masking the face. It's making sure that you're picking the right undertone, the right shades, the application technique, the prep. I should have started with that, but the prep that you're doing is just as important. If you have the oily skin, use skincare that's made for oily skin. If you have dry skin, use skincare that's made for dry skin. And don't be afraid to test, to mix, to find what really works for your skin tone. Make sure to tell me in the comments what your go-to foundation and concealer are and what combos you like, and we can compare notes. Thank you so much for listening, and I will speak to you next time.